have information reaching us, and also by the BBC. Bahrain's National Communication Center says the service center of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet has been subjected to a missile attack of its own, according to a statement quoted by the state-run Bahrain news agency. Now, they say further details will be provided in due course. The public has been urged to follow instructions issued by the relevant officials, authorities, and also to obtain information from official sources only. If you remember, Bahrain is home to the headquarters of the Fifth Fleet, whose area of responsibility includes the Gulf, Red Sea, Arabian Sea, and also parts of the Indian Ocean. And there was no immediate comment from the U.S. military, although the U.S. Embassy said earlier that they had warned citizens to shelter in place amid reported threats of Israel, or missiles rather, and drones over Bahrain. Now, remember, this is coming off the information that the U.S. and Israel have launched an attack on Iran, as President Donald Trump has confirmed that there are major combat operations underway, and the Israel Defense Force says retaliatory strikes have also been launched by Iran.
Right. Now, Mazin, I think it's also important to note, as you've mentioned, that Iran's Revolutionary Guard says that it has launched first large-scale wave of retaliatory missiles and drone strikes towards Israel. Bahrain as well says that a missile attack has targeted U.S. Navy Fifth Fleet headquarters in the country, while a missile has been intercepted in Qatar. This is according as well to Al Jazeera, that an explosion has also been reported in Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates, while countries across the region have shut down their airspaces. It's also been noted that multiple explosions have been heard in Iran's capital, Tehran, as we previously mentioned, while blasts have also reported or have been reported in other several locations across the country. Now, there is no immediate official Iranian reaction, but state media is reporting that President Massoud is safe and he is sound. Now, Mazino, this is a very interesting one, especially considering the fact that, you know, in the, I think President Trump in his peace board or thingy that he opened up, he did mention that there were actions that were going to be, you know, taken towards Iran, though he wasn't very clear as to what the actions would be. And, you know, a lot of speculation around why Trump is doing some of the things that he's doing. Is he deflecting from the fact that, you know, there's the Epstein saga that's going on now? And, you know, people would dare to say things like, there's a lot of things going on in the U.S. Why are you putting these to the side and, you know, prioritizing things that are outside of home? But I don't know, Mazino. This is a very tricky one. A lot of controversy around President Donald Trump at this particular time. I don't know. Well, what's your take on it?
I don't have a take. I'm normally just a spectator when it comes to issues regarding the U.S. because these days you don't know exactly where it's going to go. I was watching an interview with former President Barack Obama talking about the culture currently and how different it is from whatever it is that he's used to. However, once again, Donald Trump has actually announced that there are combat operations that are happening against Iran. He accused the Iranian regime of waging an unending campaign, he says, of bloodshed and mass murder targeting the United States. The U.S. president also released a video on Truth Social in the early hours of the morning in the U.S., shortly after explosions were reported in the Iranian capital, Tehran, which they have retaliated for. We just told you the areas that have been struck by Iran currently, although there has been no Iranian comment regarding this. Now, what did President Trump say? He said the U.S. president says Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, and explains that is why Operation Midnight Hammer, that's what it's called, struck Iran's nuclear program at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Now, Trump also claims that Iran has rejected every opportunity to renounce the nuclear ambition and continue to develop long-range missiles that can threaten allies in Europe, U.S., and also could soon reach the American homeland. And he says that the U.S. is going to raise Iran's missile industry to the ground and annihilate its navy. And he also says that the Iranian regime has chartered death to America for 47 years, he claims. He has plenty to say, and apparently this has been backed with action this morning as there were strikes reported in Iran by U.S. and Israeli forces.
But I really, Mazino, really love the fact that Iran is also not taking it lying down. Iran has said, or the armed forces rather have said, they are fully prepared to make the aggressors regret their actions. Now, Iran's foreign minister or the ministry says Israeli attacks this morning have targeted the country's territorial integrity and national sovereignty, including defensive infrastructure and non-military locations in various cities across the country. Now, I quote here that the renewed military aggression by the United States and the Zionist regime against Iran constitutes a violation of international law and the principle of the United Nations Charter. That's where the United Nations comes in again. And I know for a fact that a response from the Secretary of the United Nations is going to be something that people are anticipating. I beg your pardon, the Iranian nation has always, and this again is a quoted statement, that the Iranian nation has always demonstrated patience and restraint to prevent escalations and persevere regional stability. We saw this because when there was a tit-for-tat kind of thing where it looked like President Donald Trump was instigating, wanting and hoping for a reaction, the Iranian government still in such a way stayed diplomatic and kept silent. And of course, it said there that it read and it added that the armed forces stands fully prepared to defend the country and will make aggressors again regret their actions. Now, the statement added that the attacks by the United States and Israel were a clear example of armed aggressions and cited Article 51 of the UN Charter about Iran's right to self-defense.
Thank you, Inam. Now, we do have a guest on this conversation, even if it is breaking news. We have Alexander von Rugen joining us, international geopolitical analyst. Alexander, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Short question. What is happening now, Alexander?
Well, I think we've all been anticipating this due to the buildup over the past 4 to 6 weeks. The Americans have needed to get their chess pieces in line. The arrival of the last aircraft carrier, the Ford, just came in this week. I think it's near Haifa right now, and that was the catalyst to being able to fulfill the plan. They needed 2 aircraft carriers for multiple or at least dual deployment sites. My information this morning is F-22 Raptors are also landing in Israel. This is the first time they've deployed them on Israeli soil as a takeoff point for any aircraft attacks or aircraft defenses against an aircraft attack on Israel. They've been spending the last 4 weeks in the military game room working out scenarios, where to attack. Obviously, they're going to target military installations, government installations, key military personnel in Iran, and of course, the nuclear sites, the missile sites. Trump's speech was very specific. We're going to get you and annihilate the concerns we have, which is your nuclear industry, your missiles, and the Islamic Guard. We're going to stop the proxy wars that have been going on, which means they likely have identified proxy heads, Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas. And that's one thing Israel is very good at, targeting and surgically removing them. But that takes time. They have to track movements. They have to know where they're hiding. They gather intelligence from within. It's well known Mossad is well deployed within Iran. And they've been integrated there for many, many years. So that ground collection of data is very, very vital to military strategy. So by no means think that this is a knee-jerk reaction. This is well planned. The targets are known. It's going to be surgical. Trump has warned Iranians, we're not against you. We're shelter in place and use this opportunity to rebel against your regime. Much of what we've seen going on in the last 6 weeks in Iran with the protests. The first time, interesting to note that Trump said tens of thousands of Iranians have been killed. Iran has put out press releases that 3,100 people have died in the protests in Iran. We've always thought that true number is likely to be about 35,000. So numbers.
Alexander, Alexander, let's
Yes.
look at the measure of force here when it comes to this issue. We're talking about the American military. It's the biggest armada that's ever been sent offshore to another country that the Americans have ever seen. Not just that, internally, there were certain skepticisms where his one of his chief military officers actually said that this might not be the best idea. We are growing thin on different angles here, so sending such an armada to Iran might not be the best. What exactly is America's interest when it comes to Iran and its interest in nuclear weaponry, and the positioning for America when it comes to these attacks and the allies, Israel in this case?
Well, okay, lots of questions there. Iran has been financing proxy wars. They've been doing it in Africa, which is close to home, especially for Nigeria. They've done it in the Sahel. They're doing it in Sudan. Of course, they have the October 7th attack in Gaza and in Israel. Iran has announced they will retaliate in full form to all the surrounding countries that harbor U.S. bases or are allies of America. That's a pretty big grid plan. And that concern of the U.S. general was we're going to have to protect multiple points. So in the last 4 weeks, you'll note they've been evacuating embassies, reducing non-military personnel on bases, basically keeping it just the military in these presence. They've also had to position themselves because certain countries have denied them access to their airspace. The UAE is very concerned about it. Oman's concerned about it. Saudi's concerned about it because they feel that by doing this, they are going to somewhat appease Iran in non-retaliatory attacks. The other concern is intelligence is indicating there may be Iranian sleeper cells throughout America, and which has been recently indicated in Mexico, hiring Mexican cartel hitmen to operate within the United States. They tried to assassinate the Saudi ambassador and also the Israeli ambassador. So this network of terrorism is global. It's not just particular to Iran at this point. And the concern is if we don't know the intel and we don't know what we're dealing with, we're going by braille in certain areas. And we have to be prepared for it. That was
the alliance with Israel?
Well, the alliance with Israel has been there for years. I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Who controls the decision here? Is it Netanyahu or Trump? I think from time to time, Trump will take an action and he'll upset Netanyahu, especially on his recent trip to Saudi Arabia last year, where he attacked the Houthis, which are enemies of Saudi Arabia. But Saudi had a big contract, a defense contract with America. It was about $143 billion, as well as a $500 million investment in America. But the conciliatory offer was to lift sanctions on Syria, which Israel didn't like.
Now,
Trump blindsided him, so it's not. It is a very tight relationship, but I think it's not that Israel is totally calling the shots. Netanyahu was in America last week. This attack was likely had the final touches planned at that time.
Alexander, you mentioned something, but before I get into the embassies, I know right now that the breaking news has been that Iran has retaliated and fired ballistic missiles towards the Middle Eastern countries. So this is not just one missile, it is missile strikes. And right now, so far, we know that it is Bahrain, the Jufar Naval Base, the United Arab Emirates, the Al Dhafar Air Base, Qatar, Al Udeid Air Base, and Saudi Arabia, which is in Riyadh. You mentioned earlier that in terms of military and embassies, it has been right now, I think the United States Embassy in Qatar has already issued a message to U.S. citizens in Qatar, giving them a little bit of implementation and what to do with regards to seeking shelter and the actions to take. Can we confirm that this would definitely perhaps be a correspondence on all the other embassies? And does this communicate a quick escalation of the situation on ground right now?
Yeah, well, it was very clear there. Nothing was off the table. If there was going to be an attack, there'd be a retaliation, and it's going to be low-hanging fruit. Israel has an Iron Dome. Many of these other areas don't, or they have defense systems, but they're not as intricate and as well shielded as say Israel is. So they want to inflict as much damage on American infrastructure, embassies, as possible, and also their plan is to disrupt the allies against America, cause enough disruption that maybe they rethink their relationship with the U.S. and in effect weaken them in the Middle East. They're still approaching it from the standpoint that they can hold America off and defend themselves as well as attack and survive. The regime has problems from within, as you know, we've been covering in the news for the last 8 weeks with the interior protests. So that if the Iranian regime has ever been at a point where they can fail, it's right now. Last 50 years.
All right, just a bit of an update here before you ask that question, Inam. From as little as 5 minutes ago, there are multiple explosions heard in Doha, Qatar. Shortly after, country's defense ministry said all missiles launched from Iran were intercepted. And also, the AFP news agency is reporting a new loud explosion from a U.S. base in Bahrain. And also, there's verified footage of explosions in Jaffa and also Bahrain. And explosions have been reported in Urmia, in the western part of Iran, shortly after the Israeli army said it was launching attack on the area. And an Israeli military spokesperson issued evacuation warning for all residents near military installations in Iran. And AFP News also reports explosions in Saudi Arabia's Riyadh as well.
Now, Alexander, just last week, because it really was just last week, President Donald Trump launched his Board of Peace. And in his speech, which was one of the longest speeches, actually, he kept on emphasizing that there has finally been peace in the Middle East. And it's a week later, and this is what's happening. Was that a contradiction? Or what can we make of that statement last week and looking at where we are right now?
Well, the statement would have been more correct had he said there's peace in the Middle East with the exception of Iran. There's been ongoing negotiations. I mean, America has postured itself to say, look, we've done everything we can. We invite the Iranians for peaceful negotiations. We accommodate them. They've been in Geneva with Kushner and Steve Wilcock. They keep digging in their heels. They were not going to negotiate relationships with their proxies, which they've been using to attack Israel and other North African, Central African areas and disrupt situations around the world. They still run their shadow fleet, which America has been closing in on, and you'll hear about all sorts of tankers being seized globally. So they're cutting off their source of funds from oil sales. They've taken all the peaceful steps, although somewhat aggressive. You know, let's call it shotgun diplomacy. It's not peaceful diplomacy. And the Persian culture doesn't like that. They want to have a win. They want to feel like they're making a decision on their terms and save face. Henceforth, they were trying to go with patient diplomacy, hoping they could wear the Americans down on their demands. They
Alexander,
have a right to defend themselves. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were done there. May I continue?
Sure.
Okay, so Alexander, now let's widen the net now. Let's talk about what people aren't seeing. The fact that when Venezuela when its president was attacked, that simply meant something for other countries like China. Where do we buy our oil? Now with the attack on Iran, Iran was the major, or has become the major supply for China. Let's look at the bigger picture here. The biggest armada ever sent on a mission to Iran, of whom are suppliers to China when it comes to oil. Is this a proxy war?
Uh, well, you touched on something. What isn't being said? All right, let's look at the U.S. economy. America is a net oil exporter. They export about 10 million barrels a day. The Strait of Hormuz, which Iran will likely block now because of the war, and they'd actually blocked some of it already with military exercises, carries about 20% of the world's supply. Of that 20%, 85% of it goes to Asia, which is China. So who has to gain on this? Oil prices are going to go up. Wall Street's going to love this. Wall Street makes its money on churn. Churn meaning stocks going up, stocks going down, people buy, people sell. Wall Street always makes money on those transactions. And America's making money if oil goes up as well. Who's going to suffer the most? China. Does America care? Well, they're in the middle of a trade war with China, so call this extra pressure on that negotiation. Whatever happens with oil prices, it's going to be short-lived until this matter settles. If it's a prolonged war, it'll continue. We'll see what happens. But in terms of oil, let's say in Africa, the biggest effect is going to be on East Africa, primarily, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, South Africa as well. But you still have Dangote supplying oil, so I imagine the call on Nigerian oil will go up, which is good for Nigeria. So you look at these underlying net effects, the economic effects. You're going to see people wanting this conflict to continue. They make money off of conflict. I don't think that's America's pure motive here, but it certainly reinforces what they're doing. It's an underlying condition that helps.
Underlying indeed, Alexander. Now, the reason why I asked that was so I could get to this issue here, not necessarily a question, but an observation that if you send the biggest armada to Iran, before you even started having talks between Washington and Tehran, then it means that you had intentions already, that there was no going back. Even if America came out yesterday to say that, yes, we are in talks, but we didn't hear the magic words, which were, no, we will not engage in nuclear war manufacturing again. It already seemed like America was poised to attack Iran. And that was the point with Iran. They were like, we will negotiate, but not under threat. And a couple of nights later, there is an attack. Was this imminent?
Well, America likes to say, walk softly and carry a big stick. Again, that was their shotgun diplomacy, where we're going to show you a show of strength by having a concentration of our military strength around you. So if you falter, if you don't agree to our terms, well, we're ready to attack you. That's a lot of pressure when you're trying to keep things diplomatic and civil. And that is something that repeatedly Iran has been indicating. If you threaten us, we're not going to react. You're pushing us, you're bullying us. We don't like that. And again, they're a proud people. You have to respect their culture. Trump is not known to be particularly diplomatic at times, and he's been called a bully because sometimes he has no filter, and he says things that are controversial to get people's attention. But it's part of his negotiation strategy. So it's you have conflicting strategies meeting, and they come to a loggerhead, and you wonder why they can't agree, because they don't feel comfortable. In the case of Iran, America's strategy, give them enough time as terms of the global optics are concerned, so that nobody, the UN and Europe, can't say, well, America, they came in there guns a-blazing with no warning, no negotiation, no efforts for diplomacy. Israel would have pushed America to go in right away. Now, that's a repetitive narrative coming out of Netanyahu. I think America wants to keep the high road here, although we are at war now. It was inevitable, I thought. However, I'm an optimist. I was hoping that because of the internal pressure in Iran, and the movement towards a possible regime change. I think America was holding back because if Iran could take themselves over by themselves, that would be the perfect solution.
Alexander, I want to say thank you very much for joining us to have this conversation here. We will actually, well, perhaps, I'm very sure we're going to see you on screen again today as we continue to monitor the situation in Iran to have these conversations. There are many questions I would love to ask, but we do not have time here as we have to round up for Breakfast Extra. But while you are waiting to be called upon again by us here at News Central, I'm wondering what you think or the direction that you think this will go. What do you think we should expect in the next 24 hours from both countries, from both Washington and Tehran?
Well, as indicated from Washington, they're going to target military targets, missile batteries, government buildings, and of course, again, any nuclear sites that Intel has indicated have been reactivated since the 12-day war in June. So that intel's been collected. Do I have access to it? No, but I think it's a common sense decision. Yeah, they're gonna be very specific on the sites that they are going to attack. In terms of the retaliation, Iran is going to try and show strength by attacking any U.S. assets outside of Israel that are in the Middle East and within missile range. Those attacks they'll try to hit the Navy as well. I think one of the first things Trump will do is they'll take out the Iranian Navy as well. I hadn't mentioned that earlier, but he did mention that in his speech. Israel, that's the most vulnerable point because the question is their Iron Dome strong enough to repel an intense Iranian attack? 2 missiles got through in the last war out of 19. That's around 10%. But 10% can cause a lot of damage.
Exactly.
And they were targeted. They hit some strategic assets within Israel. I think that's the big concern. So, and probably a reason that the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier is positioned near Haifa. That would make sense. I think it's repelling aircraft attacks as well.
Alexander, thank you very much. My only hope is that this does not become what we had seen from the 1990s with Iraq when there was cry of weapons of mass destructions and all we found was a stick under a pillow. But thank you very much, Alexander. We'll be coming to you as this story continues to develop and so people could know exactly what's happening. Thank you again.